Exploring a new location can be extremely exciting and also extremely overwhelming at the same time. Picking which spots to check out can be tough, especially if you're in a bigger city and you've only got a set amount of time to pack in as much sightseeing as possible. While it's certainly a ton of fun to see the sights that a place is known for, like Times Square in New York City, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the White House in Washington, D.C., and so forth, sometimes you want to mix in a handful of spots that not everyone may know about. Points of interest that all the other tourists aren't going to flock to as soon as they arrive, away from the crowds and off the beaten path, or maybe a little bit more local only. The hidden gems. One of my absolute favorite resources to use while researching which unique spots I want to visit on an upcoming trip is a website called Atlas Obscura. A defining feature of Atlas Obscura is its emphasis on sharing the strange and unusual. From abandoned ghost towns and eerie underground tunnels to bizarre museums and ancient tombs, the platform seeks to promote some of the most curious and fascinating places around the world. Additionally, Atlas Obscura has an entire section dedicated to unusual restaurants, bars, and food museums, as well as a section that allows you to book individual experiences and full-on guided trips. This is probably one of the most underrated websites related to travel in my personal opinion, and I've always been surprised that when I talk to people about travel-related resources and websites and tools and yada yada, this one only comes up if I'm the one to bring it up. Though there's a lot more to this site than what I'll be showing in depth in this video, I will be showing my personal favorite ways of using the site to find and save unique spots that I want to check out on an upcoming trip while I'm planning our travels. So let me pull up the site real quick and I'll show you around. Okay, so we are on the Atlas Obscura homepage right now. I'm going to briefly touch on the different options in the menu up here and then really go into the ways that I use the site the most. So I'll just click on this first one here, which is trips. They offer full-on guided trips. I have personally never done one of these, but they look really, really cool. On this page here, you can go to all trips and you can sort by location. You can also just see they have 39 trips available right now. You can sort by different interests like food and drink, hidden cities, history, and then sort by price as well. So I'll just click into this Southern England Lore of Dartmoor. So if you scroll down, you can see the cost per person. You can get a little bit of an overview of the trip, some of the highlights, and then the full-on itinerary. So you can see day by day what you can expect to check out. You can see who the trip leader is going to be, the activity level, so what you should be comfortable doing in terms of maybe if it's a lot of walking or if it's hiking intensive or something, where the trip is going to begin and where it's going to end. This section I feel like does a really good job of breaking down what you can expect when you pay Atlas Obscura, in this case the $34.85 USD, and then what you're going to have to budget for outside of that. So for this one, for example, it says accommodations throughout the trip at historic inns are included, meals, various transportation it looks like, excluded it looks like transportation and flights to and from the starting point, pre and post trip accommodations, so probably like hotels and stuff before and after the start of the trip, travel insurance and so forth, and then upcoming departures, so you can see when this trip will actually take place. It looks like they're going to be doing it twice this year. You can see how many spots are left, or roughly how many spots are left. So if you're into guided trips, there's some really cool looking trips on here that I would recommend taking a look at. So I'll move on to the experiences tab now. I haven't done any experiences through Atlas Obscura. Again, this isn't one of the sections I use a lot, but I am going to briefly touch on all these things. I think of this section as kind of like a get your guide, if you've ever used that platform before, or the experiences section on Airbnb, which a lot of these actually link to the experiences section on Airbnb, so they're actually hosted on there. But of course, these are going to be a little bit more niche and tailored to seeing something unusual or unique. Moving on to the third menu item here, we have courses. These are courses you can take online, and some of them are even in person, I believe, where you can learn from subject matter experts and experienced educators about niche topics and skills. You can find out more about the different courses you could take online or possibly in person down here. So the fourth menu item here is places, and I'm going to skip that temporarily because that's kind of the whole point of this video, is the one section I do know a lot about. So I'm going to come back to this. So I'll move over to the fifth menu item here, which is foods. This section is called Gastro Obscura, and it's really a concentrated section for everything food and drink related. Unique bars, restaurants, museums related to food, all of that stuff lives here. Although the listings in here will also appear in the places section as you're searching through there. So you can see at the top here, it's got its own little mini menu. Food and drink is going to show places where you can sort by different regions and different types of foods and drinks and whatnot. Where to eat. So this is going to be essentially that same exact thing, but in map form. So you can launch a map and then drag it to, wherever you want to visit. And as you zoom in, you've got all these different listings that show, and you can click on them, and then you can see a brief little snippet of what it's about. And then you can actually click into the listing and learn more about it that way. And then the final menu item here is stories. They're articles that have been written by people affiliated with the website and other people who have have something unique or niche to kind of write about from their travels, they've kind of concentrated it all here into this section on the website. It is a great way to kind of find out about different areas of the world and maybe get some inspiration for where you want to travel next. All right, and then at the top towards the right, you can see these little envelopes here. This is the newsletter section where you can sign up for their newsletters. And there's usually some pretty interesting stories in there that I like to read through. They also have a newsletter that's specific to the food stuff, so that Gastro Obscura newsletter, as well as a newsletter related to their small group trips, those guided trips. Okay, so back at the top next to the newsletter section, we have the profile. So I'd actually recommend starting by making a free account. This is going to be how you save individual listings that you find while searching through the places section. I'm going to go into the profile section and show you a bit of that. Looking at this page, it's a pretty standard internet profile that you would expect from most platforms, where you've got your username, your description, and a link to another website. Mine happens to be the YouTube channel that you're on right at this very second, which you should definitely subscribe to, by the way. Please. I cannot promise I won't be that shameless in the future. Been here. These are all the places I've marked as having been, so I can scroll into any area. So I'm just going over here to New York, and I can see all these little markers of places that I've marked as having been to. And then you can click on them and you can see what they are. And then if you really wanted to, you could actually click on the title and check out in more detail or remember the place that you checked out in the past. So this is pretty cool. I really like this feature. I like being able to zoom out like this and just see where I've been. Of course, this isn't every place you've actually been to. It's every place you've been to that had a listing on Atlas Obscura that you marked that you'd been to. So hopefully that makes sense. And then scrolling down here, you can see some of the most recent places I've marked as having been to. I don't use this section as much as I probably could because I rely pretty heavily on the lists instead, which I'll show in a moment. But this could be a really cool section to use if you're wanting to have a really full view of everywhere that you want to go and get opportunities like this to just kind of zoom out and think about how many places you haven't been yet and how travel's super expensive and maybe you'll never get to some of those places and cry a little bit. Maybe that's the actual reason I don't use this section. I don't really know. And then up here, so you can actually contribute to the website if you find a spot that you think is unique or interesting and it's not currently on the website, you can add a place and then it will go to the Atlas Obscura review team and be reviewed for accuracy and just making sure it's well written and has appropriate pictures and whatnot. I've only ever added one, but I feel pretty proud, to have added and contributed to a site I use so much. The edited section is similar, except you are proposing changes to the information or maybe adding pictures to a listing that already exists. And then the last tab over here is my passport. So this is going to populate based on the listings that you mark as been here. It will look at the countries that those locations are in and automatically populate this passport area. Although again, if you haven't marked a spot as been here in a country that you've been to, you can't manually add a country to this section. So for some people, it's a kind of passport, but it's still cool nonetheless. So now we're going to go into the My List section. You can get to My List either from this link here, or if you hover over your profile, there is a My List here as well. So this section is pretty self-explanatory. You can make as many lists as you want, you can name them whatever you want, and then you can add whatever listings you find on Atlas Obscura to these various lists. I've used these a couple ways before. I've made lists that are for a specific trip. For example, a buddy and I did a road trip a while back, so I saved listings from the different spots we were going to be visiting all in that one list. Usually I make lists by country, although sometimes I'll make lists for specific cities as well, the bigger cities. For example, I wouldn't put all the listings I find in Paris and the rest of France into one singular list because that list would get really big really fast. But most of the time it's by country. So this one, for example, I made a list for Spain. It includes Barcelona and Madrid so far. I can click in there. And one of my favorite features of the list is that you have a map that is specific to the listings you've saved. So you can zoom in, let's say on this Madrid section, I can zoom in a bit and then I can click on the different listings to see what I have saved on this map view. And then of course, if I scroll down too, I can also see the individual listings in more of a list view rather than a map view. You can also see at the top here that this list is private, but you can make it public. Some people make lists for recommendations for the best places to go in London or the best pizza places to try in the world. So if you make your list public, there is a chance that somebody could search for it and see what you've saved. Okay, so I've saved the best for last, and that is the places section and also the search functionality within Atlas Obscura. When I say I use Atlas Obscura, these are the two things I'm really talking about. All right, so that fourth menu item, places, top destinations. These are going to be based on the things that people have saved as want to go, the top countries and the top cities all across the world. It's not necessarily number 1 through number whatever, it's just alphabetical. This is a cool way to see where people are going and where people are saving listings from. There's also latest places. If you hover over this, it's going to show you the most recent additions to Atlas Obscura. Most popular places places. So you have to actually click on this one. And when you do, from number 1 all the way through whatever number, these are the most popular places that have been marked as want to go. And then there's random place in here, which is kind of fun. So you can click on that and it'll just pull up a random listing. I think this one's kind of fun if you're just poking around on the website and wanting to learn about something new. It's of course another way to get inspiration for somewhere you want to go, or maybe somewhere you don't want to go, just depending on what shows up. And then the 5th menu item here within places is lists. It's a combination of ones that Atlas Obscura creates themselves, or maybe some users submitted ones. Scrolling down, 14 tunnels made for walking. You know, I always want to find a good walking tunnel. And then the last item on this places menu is itineraries. They're exactly what they sound like. They're recommended itineraries for different places, and some of them are pretty interesting. So this one, for example, my hometown, Arizona, these 8 Arizona ghost towns will transport you to the Wild West. Who wouldn't want to be transported to the Wild West? Sign me up. It's out with the new and in with the old at these preserved gold rush landmarks. How could you not want to check this out with a heading like that? Got a little description down here, and then as you scroll through the different itinerary items, they will actually highlight on the map here, which is kind of cool. So if you're going to Arizona, if you're coming to visit, you can see based on which part of Arizona you're going to be in, which of these, in this instance, ghost towns you could visit. So I've been planning for an upcoming trip recently. The first stop of that trip being London, which is actually on this top destinations panel here. I would click London here, but I'm going to show you over here on the top right, this little magnifying glass. I'm going to click that. I'm going to type London in here, but first I'm going to talk about real quick, this places near me is a really cool feature. If you click that and you allow Atlas Obscura to use your location, it will point out listings that are close around you. So it'll show a map, and then you can click on the different listings to see what may be pretty local to you that you can go check out. I've used this a couple times and I've found things that are in my area of Arizona that I never knew existed, and it made for a fun little weekend trip. So let's type London in here. I'm going to click on this destination guides. It'll use that word to try to find a specific place. So something that has the word London in it, or maybe a food and drink place that is in London, or a story related to London. So I'm going to click on London, England here. London is obviously a very large city compared to some places you may search for. So 462 spots coming up for this search is one of the higher amounts you'll probably see. Some cities and towns that may be smaller, you might not have anything come up if they are truly that small and there's nothing that's been listed from that particular place. Other places may have a dozen or so, really just depends on where you're looking. I wanted to show somewhere that has a lot just because it'll give us more to look at in the subsequent sections of this page. Attractions is where I spend the bulk of my time. This is where you can read about the different niche things that have been listed on Atlas Obscura that you can save to a list or mark as want to visit. Scrolling down, we've got cool places to eat and drink in London. So this is kind of that Gastro Obscura section of the website that's highlighting the food and drink specifically, and these will also come up in the attractions list. We've got some partnerships, so some embedded search engines for Kayak and Get Your Guide. You can see trips that are related to London or somewhere near or around London, or maybe a trip that includes London to some capacity. Atlas Obscura Itineraries. So again, this is kind of encompassing a lot of what we've already looked at, but into this concentrated page for London. I actually really like this feature. So you can click on this box at the top right and expand the map, and then you can use the little zooms at the bottom, go into a particular section, and then you can click them and it'll show you what is in that particular area. So you can see, you know, maybe I'm going to be in this area, so I want to check out something that's over here if I'm already going to be over here. And again, as you pull these listings up, you can click add to list, you can click want to visit, or if you've been there, you can mark that you've been there just from this page. You can also sort by different topics. So history, art, collections. If you click one of these, it'll take you to the list view and it'll specifically show you the listings that fall under that category. So that is a really helpful feature. Taking that stories section that we looked at earlier and just showing stories that are related to London. Lists that are related to London and have listings in the list that are related to London. All right, so back up at the top and the unusual attractions in London, I'm going to click the see all 462 things to do in London. When you have it sorted by community picks like it is already up here, this is going to show basically from most popular to least popular of the listings that are on here in descending order. So this being the most popular and then down from there. You can also sort by recently added. So the newer things that have been added to Atlas Obscura, you can have those sorted first. So really what I do is I just scroll through this page, and if anything looks interesting to me, I'll click on it and read more about it and see if it's something that's going to be near where I'm going to be in London, for example, and then I'll add it to my London list if I find it interesting enough to check out later. So let's just go into this Leadenhall Market one. I'm going to click on this. You see the name of the listing again here, and then where it is located. So you could click on this hyperlink and it would take you back to that London, England page. And then this is the quick little preview text you see when you're going through that list view. The ornate Victorian marketplace was the setting for Diagon Alley and the Leaky Cauldron in the Harry Potter films. Of course I'm going there. Why would I not go there? It's Harry Potter. And then we can see here some pictures, so you can scroll through the pictures to see if it looks like a place you want to check out. You can see someone even put a screenshot from the movie in here. You can also click on the pictures to make them larger and look through them this way. Scrolling down from the pictures, we've got the description in its entirety, so you can read all about the listing. You'll usually get a little bit of a history lesson from these listings. They'll provide some historical context to the place, or maybe it's a museum or statue. And then I find this section really helpful too, the know before you go. If a place is difficult to get to, or there's some circumstances around it that you need to be aware of when trying to visit, they'll usually be listed here, and it's very helpful to read through this before deciding if you're going to try to go there. On the right, you can see where this listing ends up on the map. It uses Google Maps. You can click on it and you can see in context of London where it's located. The particular one you're looking at will have that little star. You can also get an address for it and coordinates that you could punch into Google. Sometimes it'll actually have a button on here that will take you to Google Maps, and that's extremely helpful as well. If there's a website related to the listing, it'll be hyperlinked here, and then you can also see a handful of nearby listings, which it'll actually show some more of those at the bottom. And then you also have an option down here to make an edit or add photos to this listing. And scrolling down a little bit more, you'll see a couple more spots that are near this particular listing and some related places as well. You'll see the lists that this listing appears in, and those are the main components of an individual listing. I mostly focus on checking out the pictures, and usually this little hook line is kind of what got me to click on it. And then I'll read through the description if I need a little bit more context, and I especially pay attention to this know before you go if one exists, just because that's helpful for logistics. And then of course the map on the right. I'm a big map guy, So of course I like to see where something is physically located in context with other things in the area. And then at the top, if I think this is interesting, I can add it to a list I've been making, which I did. So I clicked on add list and I added it to my London list. If you haven't created a list, you can always create a new list down here if you would like. And then of course you can also mark this as a place that you have been to or that you want to visit. All right, back out to the all places in London page. I'll show a couple more just to give an example of some of the variety you'll find on here. So that first one was a market. This is the ruins of St. Dunstan in the East. Let's check that out. This one's pretty cool. I mean, if I haven't read about this, I would think this is a spot maybe just to get some cool photos, or maybe there's some history here that I could read about. I could of course read the description to know that for sure, but I thought this one was pretty funny and I wanted to show this one because there is a know before you go that says, be forewarned, this spot is popular for Instagrammers. Those dang Instagrammers disrupting all the peace. So whoever wrote this gave the pro tip to get there early and avoid weekends if you don't want to compete for photos. Let's check this one out. So there's Twinnings Tea Shop down here. I thought this one was kind of cool. It says a 300-year-old tea shop that brought tea to the English people, not to mention the Queen herself. So if you want the ability to say that you've been to a tea shop that served the Queen of England herself, you can go to this tea shop and have that bragging right for the rest of your life. Okay, I'm gonna click into one more and try to find something a little bit more unusual. How about this one, the traffic light tree? Look at that. Traffic light tree, a student driver's nightmare. How about any driver's nightmare? Talk about mixed signals, right? I'm highlighting this one because it is pretty unique, and you know, that may or may not be the whole point of this website, but I'm also pointing it out because it has really good instructions at the bottom here in the know before you go section. You'll find every now and again that the listings on Atlas Obscura are not the easiest to locate. Even if you pop the address or GPS coordinates into Google Maps or Apple Maps, it could be tough for one of those apps to try to figure out exactly where you're wanting to go. So if there's ever anything in this know before you go section, I would definitely take a minute to read it because it could save you a lot of time and hassle when you're on your trip. So you've really been observing for the last couple minutes what I do when I am planning for a trip and trying to find unique spots and using Atlas Obscura as a tool to do that. I'll generally go through here for as long as I have the attention span for, and I am almost always able to find at least a handful of spots that I want to save for later. But despite all of this time and effort I put into researching ahead of time on the Atlas Obscura website, I will still sometimes actually pull open the Atlas Obscura app when I'm on the trip and use that places near me feature to see if there was anything I missed that is on the route that I'm walking in that moment. So to wrap this up, I'll actually pull open the Atlas Obscura app on my phone and show you how you can find spots while you're on the go. Okay, so you can see the Atlas Obscura app in the top left corner there. I'm going to click on that. A lot of the stuff on the app is very similar to the website, just in a little bit of a different layout. So you've got place of the day, which is kind of like that random place feature. You've got new places, which is a lot like the recently added. And then you've got categories, which which we saw before as well, where you can sort by food and drink, history, nature, that sort of thing. So the toolbar at the bottom, you can see we're in the left section currently, which is the Discover area. The middle icon there is the map section, which is what I'm going to show you predominantly. And then just briefly, I'll touch on the profile again, which is that bottom right icon there. So clicking on that profile, a lot of the same stuff. So username, description, external website. Mine is the YouTube channel that you're still on, which hopefully you've subscribed to. If not, you should definitely subscribe. I'm not sorry for that. Same stats as the desktop version, places been, places you want to go, countries visited, you got your map and your list and so forth. Let's take a look at the maps, which is that bottom middle icon. This is the feature I use when I'm actually on my trip and wanting to see what's nearby. So zooming out, you can see all the listings all over the world. Let's just scroll over to London for the sake of our example from earlier. So let's say I am on the mall here and I'm walking due northeast with my wife and I'm like, hey, what's in this area? I want to check out some stuff. Here's some stuff. You can click on the different pins and get a brief description of what the spot is and what it's all about, and also what category it falls under. So maybe I click on this one, Cafe in the Crypt. This coffee shop lies hidden beneath a historic church. How cool is that? Maybe we're feeling like a cup of joe. And now we have something that is a little bit more unique than Starbucks, and we can also say that we've had coffee in the crypt of a church. So it's kind of a win-win, right? So we got a mobile-friendly version of the listing that you would see on the desktop, so you can scroll through and see some pictures up here. You can see the exact location. You can click this little Get Directions button here, and it will open up your default map program so you can map to it. You can visit the website, read a full description. You can mark that you want to go there or that you've been here now. And then a lot of the same stuff as on the desktop version. You can see some other spots that are near this place as well. Very handy app, and one I would recommend downloading and having with you if you are interested in these sorts of unique listings. Of course, to use that app on the go, you would have to have cellular service or be on Wi-Fi. If Wi-Fi isn't an option where you're going and you're on an international trip, you could consider purchasing an international eSIM through an app like AIRALO, which will give you a mobile data plan for the area you're in. I've actually made a video walking through the process of purchasing an international data plan on an eSIM app, which you can check out here or here, one of these, but it'll for sure be in the description of this video. So check that out if that's something that interests you and if data is something you need on your phone while you're on an international trip. So I know that was a lot of information on Atlas Obscura, and I didn't even go into detail on every section that the website has to offer, but hopefully me demonstrating how I use the site to find unique spots was helpful and inspires you to do the same as you plan for your upcoming trips. And let me know what you find on Atlas Obscura once you get around to checking it out for yourself. Also, I'll still be posting highlight reels from the trips that Steph and I take, but we are working hard to put out a lot more videos such as this one that provide travel tips and tricks, planning resources, and even some location-specific guides in the future that we're hoping a lot of you who follow the channel and watch our videos find a lot of value in. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider liking and subscribing. I'm sure you've heard 1,000 other people on YouTube say this before, but those 2 free clicks really do go a long way. All right, talk to y'all soon. See ya.